Oh, it's Lara Kane. My crock pot is going off, so that was kind of beeping to tell me it's time to go on. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming and taking a little time for yourself and spending it with me, maybe to feel a little better, help maybe to relax a little bit, and I'm hoping to give you some tips to help you kind of coast through the holidays a little bit smoother. So, yeah, we're in COVID. It's a really hard time. And I just want to normalize. I try to normalize with my clients every day. It's tough. We're at 9 months, 10 months. I think a lot of people are feeling anxious. A lot of people are feeling stressed, depressed. Um, Thanksgiving might not have been what we had wanted it to be. And now we're looking at Christmas, and Christmas is probably going to look very different, and I think that it's really a time for us to kind of dig deep, to kind of really come down to basics, kind of think about what's important to us. And today's talk I wanted to make about those relationships that kind of drive us a little bit crazy, or even just conflict. Even just with your coworkers or your friends, but as Christmas is coming and with COVID, I sense that a lot of us are probably going to have a lot of issues kind of pop up with our family members, our spouses, our children. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And I'm reminded of a quote by Wayne Dyer that I love, and he says, "Would you rather be right or happy?" And so he's kind of talking about how we kind of have in our minds that we're right, that we know what's best, that um, it's a very egocentric perspective that we have. And, you know, we can't really fault us for that because that's how we're created, because it's kind of a survival mechanism. So when you're talking about living in the cave or living on the savannah, you really want to make you number one in order to survive. But unfortunately, that doesn't really serve us in our interpersonal relationships because most of us are really not aware of how egocentric we are when we're interacting with other people. And I'm going to get into that. So, what I wanted to start with though is I wanted you guys to just take a second to kind of consider the fact that we're all the walking wounded, you know? And I'm not talking about like a zombie apocalypse. But if we were all healed, we would ascend to whatever is after this component. I don't know, nirvana or heaven or whatever it is. So, I mean, part of the human experience is having that woundedness. But a lot of us seem to think that we need other people to make us whole. We seem to think that, especially our family members, and if for those of us who are fortunate enough who are my age. So hopefully there are some younger people listening to this. But, I'm in my 50s and I'm so grateful that my parents are still alive. And I have an aunt that's very dear to me. And I'm very grateful that they're very active and still alive. So I'm very lucky in that manner. But ironically, I will bump up to these places where I think I need them to behave a certain way in order to, I don't know, help me heal or help me to feel better. Or it's like I'm relying on them to do something to make me feel better. And this is when I'm saying we're the walking wounded because we really are walking through our lives having expectations and then feeling disappointed when those expectations aren't met. And then it kind of creates these negative feelings, these negative emotional states. When if we could really, in an ideal world, have enough self esteem and have enough like respect for ourselves that we understood that our happiness is our responsibility. and that anybody else in our life is just kind of like the cherry on top, right? They're just here to make the experience better, but we don't need them to make us feel good about ourselves because we recognize that that's our job. And I will talk to clients about that. I will explain to them, like, really, once we turn 18, and you're lucky if you had parents who took care of you up to 18, because some people don't have that, or some people don't have good family experiences that get them to 18. But once we get to 18, like, it's our happiness is our responsibility, but we don't see it that way. So I kind of call it the delusion of woundedness. And it shows up in two ways, and it really comes out in the holidays. And so the number one thing is, like, for some reason, we think that people have to agree with us. And if they don't, then they're wrong. We think that people have to see us, that they have to think that our way is right, or, whatever, however it shows up. But we just have this expectation that people are supposed to do something specifically that's going to make us feel better about ourselves. So that's the number one delusion, because nobody really is going to make us feel better about ourselves. Granted, we have, people who say they love us, people who support us. That does help. But in the end, it's really about how you feel about yourself. And that's really built through self compassion, some type of self care practice. For me, it's been meditation and yoga, but it can really be kind of any practice that you choose. But just setting an intention to take care of yourself. But the other delusion that we're under is that we seem to think that we know what's best for other people. So when people are talking and they're saying something that we disagree with, or they're experiencing some, dramatic trauma, we seem to think that we can fix it. And the reality is, we are so complex. We don't even know ourselves. So it is impossible for us to think that we would know what is possible or what is best for somebody else. And a dear friend of mine gave me a really good tool that I use when I'm working with clients and with family, that if somebody's telling you a situation, so you're at Christmas or you're over the holidays and someone's telling you something, what you say is, you can say, and I guess this is tip number one, although this is not written under my tips, but tip number one would be like, if this were my dream, or if this were my life, or if this was happening to me, this is what I would think. Versus, I think you should do, or you should do, or like we point to the person saying, this is what you need to do or say, or, you know. But the reality is, it's being put through our filter, and their filter is very different from our filter. And so a large part of how intimacy is built in relationships is really honoring that they have their own perspective and it is as valuable as ours. And that's hard sometimes, especially with this year that we've had, with, families kind of being torn apart through politics, which is really kind of absurd. But at the same time, it's this, we're needing that reflection back that we're okay or that we're right at the expense of relationships. And so coming back down to, what do you want to be? Do you want to be right and probably alone and angry or fearful or pissed off or whatever? Or do you want to be happy? Which means you accept that everybody is in their process, just like you, because that's the other thing. Like, we're all moving through this process, this human experience. And the happiness kind of comes from just celebrating that they're going through their own process. And then if they ask you for advice, you can say, if this were my dream, if this were my marriage, if this were my kid, this is kind of how I would see it. But I recognize that that might not be how you see it. So it kind of, one, takes away responsibility for fixing it, but two, it just is kind of acknowledging that everybody is having their own filter and everyone is kind of seeing life their own way through their own experiences, from not to get too existential, but from the time of conception, we're formulating this framework through which we see the world. And it's never replicated. None of us are ever the same, and none of us see it the same. So there's there's that. So the two delusions. One, we think that we need other people to do something to make us feel whole. And two, we think that we know what's best for other people. And I don't have children, but I do hear a lot of people talk about how they think they know what's best for their kids. And in many ways, I do see in my practice where parents have, I mean, of course, parents are wiser. They have their own life experience. They have lived with the child their whole lives. But at the same time, it's so important for us to understand that our kids are born into a world that we don't even understand. And so for me, being 51, most of my friends have kids who are maybe in their early 20s, maybe in their teens, maybe in their, I have friends who have children who are 8, 9, and 10. They're growing up in a technological world that I never could even relate to. I didn't even get a computer until I was in college. So we really, on many levels, can't understand what they're dealing with. So once again, all we can kind of do is say, this is how I'm seeing it, and this is what I'm thinking. And that may be helpful or that may not. But to think that we know what's best is really diminishing their own experience. And so that leads me to my first holiday tip. So my first tip is just listen. Just take out all of the voices that are running in your head, right? So many of us are don't listen. We hear something, we react to it, and then we're like formulating our either our counter argument or our addition to the comment to prove our worth, to prove we're smart, to prove we whatever it is. I don't even know. But if we can, especially during the holidays, take a step back and just be present to listen to what that person is saying. Because I think in the end, the number one thing all of us want, one is to be loved, of course, but to be heard. And it so rarely happens these days. That's why so many of us need to go into therapy, or to have a coach or to have a third party that kind of is there just to listen because so many of us have not really learned the art of listening. And let me tell you, the art of listening is lovely because there's no responsibility. You don't have to do anything except for listen and then try to understand what their perspective is. That's really the great thing about listening is you listen and then you're like, I'm wondering how this person is seeing the world. And so I'm going to ask a few questions about it, and then you kind of inquire and then you get a little more information. So maybe you can try to understand their perspective on the world. And that's it. So just listen. Tip two. So if things start getting a little bit tense, or if somebody says something that hurts your feelings or makes you angry or, basically pokes at you. I always love that Simpsons cartoon when Bart got a tattoo and Lisa comes up. Or no, it's the baby. I can't remember the baby's name. But it might be, it's the baby. And the baby keeps poking at the tattoo and Bart's like, ouch, ouch, ouch. That's kind of how holidays go, right? It's the same wounds every year because we've not worked through them. And so if you can kind of manage, like if someone says something and you feel emotion, the number one thing is to say, that emotion is my responsibility to take care of. It is not the other person's. It's not the other person's. So if I'm feeling, so if so and so says something, and I feel like they're criticizing my cooking, that's my issue, right? Because if I were feeling grounded and if I were feeling good about myself, I would be like, oh, thank you for the input. Okay. But it doesn't really reflect anything on my who I am as a person or a human being. So you get curious. So so and so says something about, I don't know, the turkey being dry. And you say, I'm curious. Have you had turkey that wasn't dry? Like, do you know a better way to cook? Just get curious. Ask. I'm curious why, when you say this, it makes me feel this way. And so I'm just curious what you were intending because it's feeling, I'm feeling like you're picking on me or you're being mean to me. And I know that might be silly, but I'm just curious what your intentions were. And they may say, yeah, I was trying to be mean. But then once again, that's about them. And you don't have to allow that to affect you. Because usually when people are saying something mean or saying something critical or saying something that feels judgmental, it's really about how they feel about themselves. The issue is because we are the walking wounded and because we're not trying to access the adult, like wise woman, wise man component of us, and we're allowing our wounded children free reign in these family situations, um, we think it's about us, but it's never. It's rarely, rarely, rarely about us. And so, if you can keep that in mind, and then just go in listening, get curious. Um, and then the last tip is turn it around. So if somebody says something to you and it's like sits with you, that didn't sit with me very good. Turn it around. Like, why do you think Joe said that? Why do you think Frank said that? Why do you think Stella said that? And try to kind of shift the perspective and play a role reversal. What do you think they're wanting or needing? Or what do you think they're feeling? And then you can kind of check in with them, you know, I, whatever it might be. I can't come up with it. I don't have an example at the moment, but um, and we're going to do that's the meditation is we're going to turn it around. So I'm going to ask you to pick. So that will get a little bit clearer to you on what I'm talking about. And then the trick. This is a trick that my aunt taught me, and it's a fabulous trick. So if things get intense and you're trying all of the tips and they're not working, go to the bathroom. It's the best thing. No one can argue with you if you're like, I have to go to the bathroom. And go to the bathroom, breathe, do whatever you do counting breath, do whatever you do to kind of calm yourself, to clear the slate. Take some time because that even makes it like no one wants to go there if you take some time in the bathroom. No one's going to say, are you okay? And then you come out and usually the topic's dropped or at least it's given a pause so everybody can reset. So tips, just listen, get curious, turn it around. Try to understand how they're coming at it or why they're saying what they're saying. And most often when we realize when we're turning it around, there's something within them that it's coming from. And most often it's they're unhappy, they're judging themselves, or they're very feeling very critical of themselves or not good about themselves. And so unfortunately, that's a very human thing that we do. When we're feeling bad about ourselves, we will push that onto other people because we've not been taught to be mature human beings who take responsibility for their own emotions, their own happiness, their own well-being. We've really been taught to be codependent on other people, and that's just going to lead to more unhappiness. So from the talk, if I can just say, just be mindful of when you're the walking wounded. Be mindful of when you're trying to create what your next response is going to be as you're listening to someone and not really listening to what they're trying to say. Because a lot of times, if you can get out of your head, it's really fascinating because you can start to hear what they need. And then you can say something that they need to hear, that they're asking to hear, and they think you are remarkable. It's really it's a wonderful gift to give during the holidays. All right, so we're going to do a meditation. Let's see, 7:20, great. So I'd like for everyone to get comfortable, and you can be seated. I don't really like lying down because a lot of times people fall asleep, especially this late at night. So if you can if you're cross-legged on the floor, that's great. If you're sitting in a chair, if you could please no like arms crossed, no legs crossed, feet firmly on the ground. And I want you to just start by coming into awareness of your breathing and gently close your eyes. And if you'd like, you can leave your eyes a little bit open, but just soft focus about 3 feet in front of you. All right. And just take a moment to be mindful of how your body feels today. Be mindful of like what happened, what's going through your mind right now. Notice what you're kind of holding on to, what you brought into this meditation today. And invite yourself to let that go. Invite yourself to just put that aside for the next 20 minutes. Sometimes I like tying it to like this string. So you imagine all the thoughts that are going through your mind, and you go around and you collect them all and you tie them to the string, and then you let them go, and this balloon goes all the way, takes them away, all gone. So you can be clear. And you can start being mindful of your breath and being mindful of your body. And just take a few moments to feel the breath come in through the nose, through the sinuses, down the throat, into the lungs, feeling the lungs expanding, maybe even feeling the belly move as the diaphragm descends, and then feel your body release and everything kind of contracts. You feel the air move through the throat, through the sinuses, and out the nose. So just take a few nice breaths to start slowing things down, to start dropping into awareness of your body. And with each exhale, invite yourself to release some tension, to release some tightness, maybe some self-judgment, some negativity. Just imagine letting go of the burdens through the exhale. And then as you breathe in, feeling yourself breathing in pure air and energy, and it's coming in and it's moving through the blood, and it's like coming to every cell in your body, bringing fresh oxygen. And then the blood's taking all the toxins from the cells, bringing it back to the lungs so that it can be released in the breath. And then begin inviting your body to just soften and relax. So each exhale, noticing any tension, releasing your shoulders, releasing your pelvis, your hips, your quads and your hamstrings, your calves, your feet, your arms and your forearms and your hands. And then softening your scalp, your forehead, your cheeks and your chin and your jaw. And just settle into your breath. And I'd like for you to take a moment to think about a person that you may have been struggling with in the last few days, few weeks. I don't really want a long-standing struggle because that's a whole nother story. But you might have had a minor argument with somebody, or somebody might have said something that bothered you, or you might be feeling slighted by somebody. Just, it could be a neighbor, it could be a coworker, it could be a friend, it could be a family member. Just bring to mind a person that you've had some friction with in the last few weeks. And then I want you to bring the situation to the forefront. So I want you to think of all of the details of the situation. Even time of day, where were you, how were you communicating, what were the circumstances, who were the, peripheral players, who else might have been involved in the situation. Because a lot of times, a lot of our disagreements or our hurt feelings come from misunderstandings. So just really think about the circumstance and then think about your perspective. How did you see that? And then where's the rub for you? So, do you think that you were right? Do you think that you were mistreated? Do you think that you're being taken advantage of? So, where's the rub? So you can be angry, but underneath of the anger or underneath of the anxiety or the hurt feeling, there's like a belief that, I wasn't heard. Uh, they were being insensitive. They're not valuing me. Like there's always a belief underneath of the feelings. And that belief is ours. And we need to own it. So just take a moment to consider what comes up for you and what's yours. And stay present with your breath. Just thinking about the situation, thinking about the person. And thinking about what the rub is for you. This is really the key to our healing, is starting to identify what the beliefs are. What's the storyline for us? And these, what may seem like minor incidences in our lives, minor, areas of friction, actually are very telling about the story we've created in our heads that brings us a lot of pain and discomfort and pulls us away from mindfulness. So being mindful of that. So remember this, the storyline. And then I'd like for you to give yourself permission to let that go. And I know it's hard. Oftentimes I have to kind of imagine myself coming up into my higher self. So there's the little s, which is kind of the Lara who's kind of operating 80% of the time in life. And she can be the wounded, walking wounded, and she can be a little immature, and she can, allow her wounded child to. But then there's the big S, and so the big S is like whatever your belief is. It can be the soul, it can be the higher self, it can be that aspect of Christ consciousness, it can be the inner Buddha. It doesn't matter, but there is a witness in all of us. We all have experienced it. Whereas there's this level of consciousness in us that's just watching and observing. So I want you to kind of, if you need to, pull yourself up into that aspect of yourself that's observing the situation. And then I want you to imagine the other person that you're struggling with. And see if you can kind of put yourself in their shoes. And so thinking about all of the components of the situation that came into this drama, what was their perspective? What were they dealing with? Who are the other players, that were contributing? What were their belief systems? What were they bringing into the situation with you? And what do you think they needed during that situation? What do you think they were asking for? Or what do you think that they were trying to tell you in what they were doing or saying or whatnot? And so I'm going to give you just a few moments to consider taking it out of it being about you and seeing if you can fully shift into an aspect of compassion, trying to imagine what the experience was like for the other person. And then you can even take it a little bit further and imagine how it could have been different, or imagine how it could be different. Imagine any teeny little shifts that you could make, or any teeny little shifts that they could make that would change the situation dramatically. And really, it's not about them changing. So I'll take that back. What little shifts could you make? And then coming back to my tips. So listen, get curious, turn it around. So, what little shifts could you make? And I think also, I like Don Miguel Ruiz's perspective of don't make it personal, because it's not personal. It's never personal. It's always about like us and them. So don't make it personal. So taking a step back, what could you shift just a little bit that might make that situation better? Or might help you to understand them better or have more compassion towards them? And so I want to close out that meditation. So, what I'd like for you to do is, whoever that person is or that group of people is, I want you to send them some love. And sometimes it's hard. I know if you're really angry with someone or really frustrated, but once again, accessing that higher self, that higher knowing, that better part of all of us, that amazing part of our humanity. And accessing that, send them love or compassion, or if you know what you think they need, send them that acceptance, validation, compassion, whatever it is. Just imagine just sending that out from your heart space. And then once you've done that, I just want you to come back into awareness of your breathing. So feeling the breath come in and feeling the breath go out. We're going to set an intention for the holiday. And so letting go of what we had just worked on, releasing that to the universe. You don't ever have to think about that again if you don't want to. I want you to take a moment to think about your favorite holiday memory. This is such a lovely meditation. So think about your favorite holiday memory, and you may have a few, and it could be like a specific year. It could be um, a specific photo. For me, I have a photo that every time I even think of that photo, and I don't even know where it is now, but every time I think of it, it just makes me happy. It's just a snapshot. It's a lovely, lovely snapshot of happiness. So I want you to think, and it could be sleighing with your, siblings. It could be, I don't know. I have a friend whose father dressed up as Santa Claus, and he got into a sleigh and rode around with horses every year for like 30 years. The kids loved it in her neighborhood. It's such a fabulous memory. And so just think of a happy holiday memory. It could be in church. It could be making cookies. It could be putting I'll have a blue Christmas without you on your phone for the Christmas time. I did that one year. It's a funny and happy family memory. So think of that memory, and then I really want you to bring it into focus. So who's there? What's going on? What's the time of day? What might you smell? What might you see? Really, what's colors? What are people wearing? Really bring it into focus with all the senses that you can. What was happening right before? What was happening right after? And then see if you can connect with the feeling that it brings up for you. So for me, it's fun. That picture is just fun. So it could be fun, it could be connectedness, it could be love, it could be peace, spiritual connection. What's the feeling that memory? Because the reason we love the memory is because of the feeling it brings. So what's that feeling? And as you connect with that feeling, allow the memory to kind of fade into the background as you start kind of milking that feeling. So draw it deep into your heart. And each time you breathe, just feel that feeling kind of intensifying and growing. And then once you have that feeling, with each in breath, you just imagine that feeling moving through your entire body. It's like permeating every cell. So you breathe in and it kind of moves through your entire chest. And then you exhale any negativity, any tension, any tightness. And then the next breath, feel it kind of come in and it moves through your head and your arms, your chest. And then you exhale any apprehension about the holidays to come or any preconceived ideas of what's going to happen. And then you breathe in again and it's like compassion or love or connectedness. And you just feel it move through your legs and your arms. And it's just moving through every cell in your body so that you can kind of just feel that connection literally on a cellular level, which is what happens. Cells have memories. So we're just waking them up to that yummy feeling of this memory. And once you kind of have that marination going, once you've got those cells marinating, I want you to take a moment to think about the next 4 weeks. Maybe perhaps the people that you might be interacting with on Zoom, on phone calls, the people you'd like to be interacting with, the people you might be reaching out to through Christmas cards, through, saying hello to your neighbors, through family connections. Just imagining all the people on some level you will be connecting with over the next 4 weeks. And imagine sending them that feeling. So if it's love, just imagining, because there are all these luminous threads. We're sending out all these luminous threads. And unfortunately, a lot of us, when we're not conscious and intentional, those luminous threads are tainted with our woundology and our neediness and our expectations. But right now, because you're in that lovely realm of a beloved holiday memory, bringing up a very delightful memory, you're going to be sending that energy, that just pure positive light energy to, and you can just be like, to all the people I don't even know who I'm going to be interacting with or touching. We just don't know how many people we touch through our actions and through our lives. And so just imagine sending it all out. And then you can take it even a little further and sending it to like all the strangers in your community, all of the strangers. Send it out to all the people in the United States, in North America, in the Northern Hemisphere. And with each breath, imagine breathing in and we're grounding, breathing out, and we're sending that out to the entire world. Got this global pandemic. There are a lot of people who are needing some light and some love, and we have so much to share and to give. So, in your next few breaths, just imagining breathing in, grounding in yourself, and breathing out and sending that yummy, yummy emotion to every sentient being on the earth. And then on your next in breath, grounding. On your next exhale, sending out that emotion and then just releasing it, letting it go, and coming back into awareness of your breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. And notice how you feel. So dropping into awareness of your body, you can begin kind of moving things around, your fingers and your toes. I always like to roll my neck. I always get a lot of tension in my throat. So I'll bring one ear to one shoulder and then I'll kind of roll it around. You can bring your arms up, stretch overhead. Oh, I'm sure my back needs to be cracked. Stretch your legs. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So I think tip number 4 will be come back to a favorite memory. Come back to favorite holiday. Because that's really the essence of what we all are looking for during this holiday season, right? Our favorite memory, the quintessential holiday memory. And we all have one, but it might not be, around the Christmas table. It might not be opening gifts. It might be out in a snowy forest somewhere. It might be wherever. But that's what lights us up. And so I think as I wrap this up, I would say stay connected to that as you walk through the next 4 weeks and intend and imagine that you are sharing that feeling with every person you come in contact with over the next, 4 weeks. So I appreciate you joining me today. I hope this meditation was helpful and I hope this talk was helpful. If you liked what you heard, please, 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 and you haven't signed up for my newsletter, please sign up. Please send us an email at torchwellness@gmail.com and just let us know you'd like to sign up for our email. We also do a transcript of well, I don't do, my amazing assistant does a transcript of the meditation. So if you wanted to be able to have it, to read it, to redo the meditation, we'd be more than glad to send that to you. We are going to be reforming Torch in 2020. I'm so excited. And we're going to be doing a Patreon page, hoping to launch it in February. Might be March, not really sure. But on the Patreon page, it's like you pay like a monthly subscription and then you get various services. And I'll be doing 2 breathwork classes a month on that page. I'll be doing a meditation. I'll be doing different talks on nutrition or pharmacology. I am starting an integrative psychiatry program this year, 2020, which I'm so excited about. And that's really going to round out my practice. And so I'll really be able to offer a lot more, as far as just things that you can do that are not necessarily medication based to help yourself feel less anxious or depressed or just feel better. So, thank you. I don't think I will see you guys before the new year. Oh, I'll be doing my third annual New Year's meditation. It's the second Tuesday of January. Don't know what day that is. Um, Tracy probably will post it just now. Um, January looks like it's going to be I think it's the 12th. So, and that's a really great meditation. I'm going to help you. I would like for you, I'll send out, if you email us, we'll put in our newsletter for January, kind of how you prep for that meditation, because it's a very powerful meditation to set the intention for 2021. And if you guys are like me, I think I heard there are, I don't know, 19 days. Is that right? I could be wrong. Left of 2020. I will be so glad when 2020 is done. A lot of growth for all of us, a lot of growth potential. So, yeah, please let us know. Please leave some comments in the sidebar on our comment page. And this will be available on Facebook. Please share it with friends and have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you guys. Bye.